Let me ask you something, gentlemen. Do you really think the fight worth having is to collectively ban fast food? Or is the noble fight for each of us to simply not eat fast food? QUASIMANDIAS and I have been having an interesting conversation, albeit not directly, about furthering this concept of morals and ethics. Just generally, ethics being your rules to which you adhere and live by personally in your own life, and morals being the public sphere, how we all respect and relate to each other. If you haven't checked out by now QUASIMANDIAS' channel, I highly recommend it, link in the low bar. He's been doing an interesting conversation coalescing around ethical behaviour and how we all might conduct ourselves in the face of reality to be better moral human beings and better ethical human beings. And while listening to his latest work, he mentioned that the easiest way to be an ethical person is to simply practice it. And what suddenly hit me was, in terms of the manosphere and the male red pill arena that we all tend to talk around, it hit me that many guys are stuck on issues of morality, completely non-ethical. Just think about that. Many of us guys are conveniently focusing on the world's morality, on social morality. Traditionalists are focusing on the good of the species and, the relationship between men and women in a larger social context. They're focusing on this larger societal moral aspect of getting along with each other, of men getting along with women. It really struck me that us guys, and it probably stems from men's responsibility that the buck stops with them, as opposed to a female's mentality, but a guy's mentality is largely the responsibility for morals out there. It's mine. And I started to think men have this large romantic attraction to morality, saving society, being the hero for women in society, which I touched on in a previous video. So men are forever focused on this noble morality of society and this distal saving of the future, where they completely avoid their ethics of how they live day to day. Think about that. When we start talking about, where do you think the manosphere will be 5 years from now, or the survival of the species, it's all morality. It's all trying to save everybody else. And I'd ask, what about you? And I think this is the conversation that certainly I've been having for a long while now. It's a convenient distraction to talk about this nobility of morals out there, distracted by things that are important, politics, the family, the survival of the species, the whales, distracted by the moral distal aspects of our lives ahead of us, so that we conveniently ignore our proximal ethics. So just think about it. A lot of men just can't seem to get past really forensically analysing women and the system and biology in relation to this and how we bump into each other socially and morally out there, and conveniently ignore ethics. Everything's about morals. And like I've mentioned, maybe it stems from men's buck stops here mentality, where they feel an impulse to be proud and heroically responsible for this distal morality of society. And it's like, don't worry everyone, I'll take care of that. Meanwhile, you're an empty husk. There's no ethics. What's the point of you adopting an ethical framework for society, which largely becomes a morality? What's the point of piously adopting this morality for everybody else that you conveniently later on will fit into, where you don't place yourself there first? You don't lead by example. Morals are downstream from personal ethics, gentlemen. I believe the more responsible and ethical we are personally, the consequence is a more moral society. I just can't help but see people avoiding themselves in terms of their ethics. It's just too convenient to continually virtue signal about society's morality and what these solutions are, While you as an individual, it's very hard, if not impossible, to affect large-scale change in a distal moral society. But you can, in a very real and big way, affect your own ethical behaviour. And when there's enough ethical individuals en masse, you change the morality of society as a consequence. You see, wanting the morality of society to be fixed is sort of like happiness, where I believe happiness is a consequence of virtuous and ethical living. You don't aim for happiness. Similarly, you don't aim for a moral society. You aim for an ethical individual, and with enough of them cooperating, the result is a moral society. You know, I think it's at the heart of a lot of the frustrations as well online, because it is real powerlessness when you think about it, concentrating on trying to save some species of plant or animal on the other side of the planet while paying absolutely no attention to your own life. And yes, we can talk about the morality of society, we can talk about gynocentrism, but again, we're talking about the morality of everything else outside of us. When you start to focus on yourself, when you put yourself first, when you focus on your ethics and the liberating responsibility of it's all about you. Some guys will say, oh, human, I miss your old content where you were pointing out what was wrong with women. Yeah, I don't negate women's nature, it can have its bad points, but I'm not spinning my wheels anymore in the pointless female hamster cage of her morality and how women are out there. I just don't care. It doesn't make a difference in my life, gentlemen. And the sooner you guys realize that, I think the more you can actually start taking steps in your own life, with or without women. When you stop pointing externally to the morality of women, and instead you focus on your internal ethics, you realize that your world's generated by your ethics and how well you practice and abide by them. And you'll make mistakes and fall over, but that's half the liberating fun of being able now to do your own thing and forge your own path. So this is a big thing that kind of hit me. We are frustrated and we keep talking about the morality of women and gynocentrism while having almost absolutely no interest in ethics, our own ethics. It's the system's fault. It's gynocentrism. It's biology. It's nature. Science says this, so this justifies it. Everything's external. Everything's morals wrapped around in science and mathematics and data. Fine, okay. But what are you going to do with it ethically? This is the going of going down your own path. And precious few men are concentrating on their ethics. And why I have such a big interest more and more on the philosophical side of thinking better as a man in relation to gynocentrism. You see, gynocentrism is not the focus. My ethical behavior while looking at gynocentrism as an observer. See, that's the difference. My reality is I'm not a being that's placed in the lion's pit of gynocentrism and I have to survive. I am a being that generates my reality. My focus isn't on the morals of society and fighting women or the system. I accept them for what they are. I accept their capriciousness. I accept that they don't have my interest at hand. They're surviving and they're tearing at each other like most human beings do to survive and get their own way. Now, I ask you, gentlemen, how are you prepared to see things for a change? If you've kept throwing stones at the world and women and gynocentrism and everything, often quite rightly, how has that worked out for you? How many months, years have gone by now where you're nervously safe but still unoptimistic and largely nihilistic about the future? Are you distracting yourself with getting angry? Is that the only thing that's giving you a spark of life? Try practicing your ethical behaviour, gentlemen, and the morals in your world will take care of themselves, trust me. You can't control the morals out there. You can control your own ethics. At least you can try and practice them as best you can. Don't walk away from ethics the way gynocentrism is. Gynocentrism and women are conveniently wanting morality to save them. And a gynocentric framework, which is fairly immoral today, is not saving anybody. It's just the dog-eat-dog world. Because you're swinging in the void at trying to affect and defeat and shape and change the morals of society without ever addressing the personal ethics of you. Self-actualization is a focus on you, your ethics. The talk of morals today, I think it's a convenient virtue signalling distraction. Focus on your ethics, gentlemen. With enough people focusing on good and sound ethics, reciprocal ethics with one another, the golden rule, so to speak, a good moral society will result. It'll be taken care of with enough individually ethical people. Something to think about. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Share, like, comment, subscribe, donate, and support my channel via the links below. Thanks, guys.